Today is November 6th. The time is 5:30 and I call this meeting to order. First, we're going to go into executive session. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion for executive session.
For the purpose of determining, for the purposes of determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations and or instructing negotiators about a confidential economic development opportunity as authorized under CRS section 24-6-4024E.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, vote.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Yes.
we are headed to executive session. We will return. Okay, Ms. Solano, you want to start us off with city updates?
Thank you, Madam President and City Council, Mayor Gradisar. I just have two very brief updates this evening. The city is currently hosting the Reno Air Association Site Selection Committee in response to the city's proposal to serve as the future home of the National Championship Air Races beginning in 2025. And the city is one of 6 finalist cities in review. The team of 7 race association members flew in yesterday evening. They had a full day today at the airport reviewing the location and the potential race course. The team will leave tomorrow morning on to review of the next of 6 cities in their total review. A final decision on the future home is expected before year end. The city team did a great job today in showcasing the Pueblo Municipal Airport and in able to answer all of the committee's questions. Thank you to President Graham and Councilor Martinez, who both attended the welcome reception and the dinner yesterday evening. So far, so good. They're out to dinner this evening with some city hosts and chamber hosts, and they'll depart the city tomorrow, and we'll wait to hear from them. The second update that I have this evening is just a project summary to move forward with hopefully City Council's direction this evening for staff on the 2024 state legislative season lobbyist. If you recall, back in September, City Council's direction to staff was to issue the RFP and open it up to potential bidders besides just the last year's contractor. So on September the 26th, the RFP was issued. It was open for 21 days. The questions were due from the bidders by October the 10th. There were none that were received, and the responses and closure of the RFP was on October the 17th. 2 responses or bids were received by the city, one from Capital Success Group, which is Gil Romero, who's the principal team member, and the second from Cornerstone Government Affairs, where Megan Davison is the vice president in the Denver office. Both bids were reviewed by the purchasing department. They were marked as acceptable for the next level evaluation. The evaluation committee members were Councilor Sarah Martinez, City Attorney George Hippolyte, and myself. The evaluations have been completed, and the following scores were individually completed and submitted to purchasing. Capital Success Group received a score of 91.33, and Cornerstone Affairs received a score of 70.67. So at this point, we wanted to share that the evaluation committee was unanimous in agreement to make a recommendation to council to move forward with a contract to Capital Success Group, Gil Romero. From this point, because of the RFP process with council's direction, a resolution could be put on to city council's agenda to award that contract as early as November the 27th, Monday the 27th. That concludes my report. If you can share any discussion or consensus for us to move forward.
Any questions for Ms. Solano? Councilor Maestri?
Whose budget is it coming out of? Council's or the mayor's, or combination of both?
Council's budget. It was part of the professional services budget that was placed in the council's 2024 budget.
And you had one member from council on the review committee?
Yes.
Councilor Flores?
I just wanted to say that they did an amazing job for us the first year that we hired them. And I mean, I couldn't believe how much attention they paid to detail, and they were available almost at every one of our meetings. So I'm happy that they came out on top. I guess that's another question. Their bid was lower too, wasn't it?
Purchasing has asked that in a public setting, I not disclose
Okay.
the pricing of those bids at this point. I can do that either through the city attorney's office, can talk to you directly. They just asked that because they have not communicated with either of those bidders, that the pricing was confidential to date.
Okay. Well, I'm a yes.
Councilor Martinez Ortega, yes.
Yes.
Councilor Tencio?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Councilor Maestri? Yes. And I don't think Councilor Martinez is on, so it looks like.
I'm a yes.
There she is. Okay, fantastic.
Thank
Set.
you. And that concludes city's updates this evening. If you have any questions or direction for me.
Any questions or directions for Ms. Solano?
Oh, Mr. Hippolyte, I'm sorry.
Turn your mic on.
I didn't refer to my email. Do you have my 2 ordinances ready for next week?
I have not finished writing the background papers, but I should be done by Thursday.
Okay. So they should be able to get on the agenda for next week.
I believe that would put, if I don't get them, the closing of the agenda was done last Thursday, so I will need to, they would have to be on the 27th, on the 27th.
All right.
Anybody else? Okay, so our first presentation tonight is from Mount Carmel Veteran Services. This is for their funding request of 75,000. So we have Mr. Sal Katz, the Regional Operations Manager, and Bob McLaughlin, the Executive Director.
Thank you. It's an honor for us to be here.
There you go.
Thank you. It's an honor for us to be here. We did, there's the slides. So our purpose tonight is to provide you an update on our mission and our vision of what we've been able to accomplish in 2 years. This is Veterans Week. Veterans Day is the 11th. It's an honor to be doing this work here in Pueblo for 2 years with Sal and the team. We are very, very honored that you provided initial support for us, and we want to show you the work we're doing, and we've submitted a request for sustainment funding. So next slide. So in 2021, we started this work. Sal came on board, and we've been operating here for the last 2 years, performing the basic mission of providing services for military veterans and their families. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. What you have done as public leaders in this community has set a standard for other communities to build public-private partnerships. And I will show you what that looks like in this community and how important it's been for us. So when you look at our services and best practices, behavioral health counseling, military veteran family services, transition and employment, and State Veteran Business Outreach Center, what Sal and his team have been able to do here in each of those areas has dramatically increased support for military veterans and families. His team has done great work. The Veteran Business Outreach Center is new this year, and we're already working to make sure that rural veterans and their families are being assisted for outreach for starting small businesses and entrepreneurs, and we're going to continue that program moving forward. When we first came here and we opened up our office in St. Mary Corwin, we had about 800 square feet of space. We've tripled in size with partners. What I want you to see here is the initial grant was from March 2022 to March 2023. This shows a tremendous increase of veterans and families touched by our services. In working with Sal and the team, we project a continued increase of support in helping those who have served in this community. Also, by having a presence here in Pueblo, Sal and his team have been able to touch more rural communities that are associated with the VA here to provide services to those veterans so they don't have to travel. Moving forward, we believe that the work that's being done here is going to help so many others in Southern Colorado based on the example that's been set with this public-private partnership throughout the southeast part of Colorado. So we're very proud of that. With regards to partners, Sal, you want to chime in with what you're doing with partners?
Yes, City Council, thank you. Good evening. This is just a small portion of partners that we've developed here. And I honestly believe that the Mount Carmel Veterans Service Center is a cumulative relationship for the over 13,000 veterans. And these are some of the partners that we've actually spent time with their resources and services for our veterans here in Pueblo.
The thing that's of note is since we started this with initial funding based on the public-private partnership, we've motivated through your offerings private funders to match. Our initial startup budget was $150,000. We're operating at about $350,000 annually. We do that with state dollars, with the dollars that you've provided, and some county dollars as well to have a balanced budget. We believe moving forward, we're going to continue to be able to have some other grants that will be able to help us with general operating to make sure we're sustained to continue to help more families in the community. What are your questions?
Thank you for the presentation. Is there any questions? Counselor Martinez Ortega?
Thank you, Madam President. Yeah, I just have a couple of quick questions. So Mount Carmel Veterans Service Center, that's in Colorado Springs?
So I started it in 2016 with an initial building in Colorado Springs, and then we opened up our satellite office in Pueblo in late 2021.
And so the Southern Colorado One Source DMVA VA Mount Carmel, that's a different organization altogether?
Well, we're partnering with the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs to bring a one-stop center here to further expand what we're doing. We're hoping, the process takes a little while to come to fruition, but if you're looking towards the future, to be able to have the offerings of Mount Carmel coupled with some of the state offerings with some state funding will further expand our ability to help more veterans in the community.
I understand. Thank you. But the 70,000, does that go to Colorado Springs or El Paso County? It supports the services here.
Every dollar that comes from you stays here.
Great. Thank you so much. And just last question, you said the county also helps provide financial help. Is
They
that
do.
true?
Yep, they provided 35,000 and we're continuing to ask for some sustainment dollars.
Great. Thank you.
Counselor Flores?
Yes, I wanted to talk about the homeless situation. And I noticed that one of your services that you provide is homeless outreach. But it's my contention that when you disaggregate what a homeless person looks like or what constitutes a homeless person, usually it's someone that has mental health issues or addiction issues. And in many cases, that includes a lot of veterans, along with their other, other issues that they might be confronting. And I contend, and I don't know whether you agree, that there are many, if you'll see a typical night here at City Council, one of our meetings, somehow the community feels that the city should solve the homeless problem. And that we have these magical solutions and we're going to be able to do that. But when you look at community like Colorado Springs or Pueblo, you're looking at organizations within those communities that are getting massive amounts of money for mental health and addiction recovery. And most of the grants that they go after, they portend that they're going to solve the mental health problems of many individuals and the addiction problems of many individuals. And it just seems to me that we all need to get together, specifically the city, and we'll take part of the pie. But I think if you look at the entire, environment, there's just a lot of money out there, but we're all working separately. And I know that you have limited resources, but I just wanted your opinion. Number one, explaining what you mean by homeless outreach. And secondly, how you view the problem and how it could be solved if we got really better, instead of working in silos, working together.
No, I appreciate that question. Thank you. And I'll give you an answer based on something that we're doing right now in Colorado Springs, and Sal's going to model here. I just executed the homeless stand down for El Paso County 2 weeks ago. The county homeless coalition folded earlier this year for El Paso County, and we, Mount Carmel Veterans Service Center, took over the homeless stand down up there. And I'm sharing this with you because it shows that if we're doing this right and we're coming together, we can be more impactful. So this year we serviced about 126 homeless through the stand down, but more importantly, and here's where I think the answer is, as we sit here today, we are executing a program called the Homeless Initiative. And it might be a small chunk, but it's an example of taking homeless vets that have behavioral health issues, financial issues, centrally locating them in one place with immersion services to bring them to self-sufficiency. Right now, we believe that the 10 that are being housed in a hotel will all reach self-sufficiency in 30 days, and then we will monitor them for a year. What we want to do is take the success that we've had with that, with partners, and execute part of that here in Pueblo with Sal's leadership. The good news there is you got to take care of the behavioral health issues. You got to find them jobs. And then the real challenge when someone asks me, it's about not just about shelter, but how do you sustain in housing? And I know there's a lot of housing initiatives going on. For the people that Sal and I talk to, we want to make sure that however they're being housed, whatever program they're in, that we are giving them the services to make sure they can sustain that housing. So we want to be part of it. We know that the city can't do it alone, nor should they, but the public-private partnership is critical, and we're here to be part of it.
Thank you for what you do for veterans. It's, I've heard a lot of good things in the community about the services you provide. So thank you.
Honored.
Counselor Maestri?
Did you say there's only 10? And was that Colorado Springs or Pueblo?
So right now, there's 10 of the vets that came through one of the biggest challenges is who qualifies.
Mhm.
Are they willing to do it? And then you put them through the process. So to me, 10 is a handful, but the more we can bring these resources together in a meaningful way, I would love to do 10 a month, 10 a
Mhm.
quarter,
Mhm.
to do more. So I think we have the right recipe. We just need to bring the right players together and continue to do this.
I just ask you that because the public perception is there's all these homeless veterans that aren't being taken care of. And I seem to know differ that that you are very active in the veteran community, helping those that you can, that you come across. Because a lot of people say that they're a veteran for sympathy, and because they think that veterans, deserve more, or they can get more resources because they're a veteran, and they're usually not, so I knew that there was like a low percentage. And so I'm glad that you brought that up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Counselor Atencio?
Yeah, I don't have any questions. I just want to thank you for your service and to our veterans. I'm a veteran myself, and I appreciate what you do for my fellow veterans. So continue your good work.
Thank you.
Thank you. So Ms. Solano, do you need direction for this? I know it's in the B1, but do you need us to agree with it?
President Graham, we can either do that now, or I think that Alex will be up and during the 2024 budget discussion. And it is part of that discussion as well. So,
We can just do it now.
okay.
Counselor Martinez, did you have anything?
No, I thank you for all what you do, and I'm totally supportive of this ask.
Okay, Counselor Martinez Ortega,
Yes.
Counselor Atencio?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Counselor Flores, Counselor Maestri?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you for coming to present, gentlemen. Appreciate everything you do.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have our partners from Pueblo Urban Renewal Authority. The proposed urban renewal areas. We have Mayor Gratishar, Mr. Hippolyte, Mr. Pacheco, Mr. Williams, all presenting. Not sure who's first, but whoever it is. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam President, members of council. This is a presentation I prepared to go over and sort of level set some of the requests that we've gotten from the Urban Renewal Authority about new proposed areas and some of the to make sure that we're all speaking the same language. So I'll start. Went too far. Brief introduction. I'm going to go over the urban renewal purpose and a brief history, then talk about the law, the general law that applies to urban renewal authorities, talk about city council's authority in the urban renewal process, introduce the proposed plans that have been submitted to the city, provide some other examples of other plans that show what other urban renewal authorities do, and then provide some staff recommendations that were provided to the Urban Renewal Authority. A brief history of an urban renewal authority. They were enacted. The act was the federal act was enacted in 1949. Colorado adopted urban renewal authorities in 1958. Originally, urban renewal authorities were primarily designed to access the tremendous amount of federal funds that were available to clear slums and build housing. One of the most important parts of this slide, there were significant amendments that were made to the Colorado's urban renewal statute in 2015. They're called the 1348 amendments, but they created some additional requirements for more transparency and specificity provided to the taxing partners within an urban renewal authority or area, excuse me. Colorado Urban Renewal Law is generally found at CRS section 3125-101. The definitions sort of important for as we move forward in this conversations. A governing body is defined as the municipality's governing body within which an urban renewal authority has been established. So in the case of the city of Pueblo, the city council is the governing body for the urban renewal authority. An urban renewal area is generally defined as a slummed area, blighted area, or a combination thereof, which the local governing body designates as appropriate for an urban renewal project. So again, the urban renewal area has to be designated by the governing body, which is in Pueblo, the city council. An urban renewal plan is a plan for an urban renewal project, which conforms to a general or master plan for physical development within the municipality and which is sufficiently complete to indicate the activities as may be proposed to be carried out in the urban renewal area. So plans are supposed to tell you exactly what urban renewal is going to do in that specific area. An urban renewal project is defined as an undertaking or activities for the elimination and prevention of the development or spread of slums and blight in accordance with the urban renewal plan. Moving on, the powers of an urban renewal authority, which can be found at CRS section 31-25-104. Urban renewal authorities have the power to borrow money and or to apply and accept advances, loans, grants, and contributions from the federal government or other sources. They also have the power to make and to submit or resubmit to the governing body for appropriate action. The authority's proposed plans or modifications thereof. Plans are generally supposed to include, are generally designed to assist the municipality in preparation for a workable program for utilizing appropriate private and public resources to provide for the redevelopment of slum and blighted areas. Generally, they include financing plans, maps, plats, appraisals, title searches, surveys, studies, and other documents that are necessary to understand the work necessary and pertinent to any proposed plan or modification. Approval of plan, which is again done by, in this situation, City Council, is governed by CRS section 31-25-107. Under that statute, any urban renewal authority is prohibited from undertaking any urban renewal project unless the area has been designated and the plan approved by the governing body at a public hearing. Prior to approval, plans must be reviewed by the municipality's Planning and Zoning Commission for general conformity to the development plan within the municipality. 30 days prior to a hearing on the plan, certain things have to be provided to the taxing partners, including the county. One is the time for completion of any urban renewal project, any annual property tax increment that will be generated by the project, the impact on revenues and or cost/extents of additional infrastructure that's necessary to service a new development, and any method of financing that's going to be used. So to sum it all up, the city's authority over an urban renewal authority, the city is the governing body in accordance with the statute. The city is the only entity that has the power to designate an urban renewal area. The city is the only entity that has the power to approve an urban renewal plan. And the city must approve any substantial modification to a plan or a project. Substantial modifications are generally defined as anything that will substantially change the provisions as the plan is articulated in terms of land use, land area, authorization to collect tax increment, the extent or use of tax increment financing, the scope and or nature of an urban renewal project, the scope or method of financing, design, build, requirements, timing, etc. Additionally, a substantial modification also can be where the plan is being clarified to a plan that when was originally approved was lacking in specificity regarding the urban renewal project or financing. Moving on to the three proposed urban renewal plans that the city has received. The first plan is the North Elizabeth Urban Renewal Plan. It's a single parcel plan for about 21 total acres. 2.1 acres. The project activities as listed in the plan are the general statutory powers of an urban renewal authority. The plan does not provide a financing plan. And with respect to the use of the tax increment, the plan requests all of the property tax increment above any base calculation for the next 25 years. The important part to note about the plan, essentially the plan is requesting a pledge revenue of about $7 million over that 25 years. Of that, the city is requested to pledge about 1.1 million. Moving on to the Bluffs Phase 1 Urban Renewal Plan. It's 5 different parcels totaling about 3.3 acres. Again, the project activities are the general statutory powers of an urban renewal authority. It does not provide a financing plan. It proposes the use of all property tax increment above the base and all sales tax increment above a base. Generally, the requested pledge from the city, the requested pledge from all the taxing entities is about $6.5 million, and the requested pledge from the city is $1.2 million. The last plan is the West Pueblo Urban Renewal Plan. It's about 8 different parcels totaling about 354 acres. It's planned in 3 phases of development, as you can sort of see on the screen. The project activities, again, are the general statutory powers. It does not provide a financing plan. And from a tax increment perspective, it requests all of the property tax increment above the base and all of the sales tax increment above the base. It requests a total pledge of revenue of around $80.9 million, and the city's portion of that total pledge would be about $31.4 million. So here is an example of how Colorado Springs Urban Renewal Authority puts together its plans. All of the information on this slide was developed from their website. Colorado Springs publishes all of their documents of any urban renewal plan project online for anyone to download and find. It specifically lays out goals for the new development. It also this is for the South Nevada Urban Renewal Area. The total land, as you can see from a financing plan perspective, the total land area is 41.7 acres. There are 93 different parcels. They're under control of 47 different owners. It shows exactly how much it would cost to acquire the land and or options on the land. It shows exactly how much it would cost for demolition and or environmental remediation on the project. And then it breaks out exactly what the public improvement costs that the Urban Renewal Authority is proposing funding would cost. The total value of all of that project together is about $78 million. Of that $78 million, the public financing requirement is about $67 million, which $25 million of that will be done through tax increment financing. So in total, 37% of that total financing is TIF. And for that 37%, the Greenbelt value, which is the value of a property after certain environmentally sound improvements are made, would be $6 per square feet, so $11 million. Another example, the Denver Urban Renewal Authority, their 38th and Huron proposal, which again, this is publicly available information, all pulled from the Denver Urban Renewal Authority's website. They, like the Colorado Urban Renewal Authority, or Colorado Springs Urban Renewal Authority, publish all of their information online. It lays out the specific goals of the projects. It also here, where Denver did not have specific project activities that were going to go on in an area, they lay out the type of activities based upon the type of development they think may be necessary. So they dedicate money to public participation to make sure the public understands how they're going to redevelop the area, redevelopment agreements with developers to redevelop the area, renovation and enhancement of buildings and improvements, installation, construction and relocation, and reconstruction of public and private improvements. It also provides a general financing plan where it asks for the use of the city sales and properties tax for the next 25 years, or when the indebtedness is paid back. Once that indebtedness is paid back, all of that money gets returned to the taxing entities. All of the amounts above debt service in any given year are going to be refunded to the taxing entities. And any financing that is done after approval of the plan requires city approval. So currently, based on CRS 3125-1079 II, it generally requires tax increment above a base to be placed into a special fund and spent only on project indebtedness and or reimbursement of obligations authorized under the statute. Any excess municipal sales tax or property tax collected not allocated to the indebtedness or reimbursement is supposed to be refunded to the municipality or taxing entity in proportion to their contribution. When the indebtedness has been repaid, all of the taxes within the urban renewal area are supposed to be returned to the respective public bodies moving forward. And any money left in the special fund after all of the indebtedness and or obligations are paid are supposed to be returned to the taxing bodies on a pro rata basis based on their current mill levies. Based on review of urban renewal's budget, currently the Pueblo urban renewal area in 2023 to date has transferred about $917,000 in excess tax increment from existing urban renewal areas that excludes their vendor fees from existing urban renewal areas into the entity's general fund. In 2023, the Pueblo urban renewal area spent tax increment from existing urban renewal areas and areas that are not designated in the city. Specifically, I was able to witness a presentation about its efforts on the Strack Elementary School project. However, the city council has not approved that area as an urban renewal area as to date. It's also my understanding, looking at the urban renewal area's budget, that they do not return excess tax increment not allocated to repay indebtedness or reimburse obligations to the existing tax entity or tax entities, or use that money to reduce the existing obligation that the Urban Renewal Authority has. So after being presented with these projects, staff reviewed them and provided responses. I provided directly responses working with staff about each of these plans. Specifically for the North Elizabeth plan, staff requested that the plan include descriptions of the necessary powers, public improvements, and costs that are necessary for a hotel redevelopment. Currently in the plan, it does not contemplate a hotel redevelopment. However, the impact statement for the plan does. So the city simply requested that those costs and allocations be laid out in the plan, and the powers necessary to facilitate that type of development be laid out in the plan. In the current plan contemplates county standards and regulations being applicable to development in that particular area. Again, as the entire property is within the city's limits, the county's development standards shouldn't apply. So staff requested that be removed. Again, staff also requested that in the plan, currently there's a section which allows the Urban Renewal Authority to engage in quote other project activities and undertakings with tax increment without city approval of a plan modification. Staff requested that that be removed, and in accordance with the statute, any additional uses of tax increment or on other projects be approved by the city first. Staff also requested that a project financing plan or acknowledgement that any financing plan would be a substantial modification and require city approval, have to come back to the city whenever Urban Renewal determined if they were, to the extent they were going to finance any of that tax increment. And then the city also requested a value for money analysis on the tax increment invested for public improvements, essentially to show how every dollar that was used in tax increment would generate additional tax base and or revenue for the city and or the taxing entities. All of those requests were rejected by the Pueblo Urban Renewal Authority. Transitioning to the West Pueblo Urban Renewal Authority, very similar thing. Staff requested a specific description of the desired development in the area. It's my understanding that that area is less developed than the North Elizabeth. And so more general types of development or development types will be necessary. So staff asked that that be outlined in the plan. It asked for, again, the same thing, specific descriptions of the powers, the public improvements, and the costs necessary to facilitate those types of development. It asked for removal of any right to make improvements outside of the designated urban renewal area. It asked for removal of any assertion of use of county standards or regulations applicable to development within the city's limits. It asked for removal of the authority to use any city sales tax or engage in any other project activities or undertaking with the city's tax increment without approval of a plan modification. It asked and requested a financing plan or acknowledgement that any new financing would be a substantial modification to the plan and require city approval. And again, it asked for a value for money analysis. All of those were rejected by urban renewal as well. The Bluffs Phase 1 urban renewal plan, same thing. As that project is that area is less developed, it asks for specific types of desired development within the area. It asks for a specific description of the public improvements and the cost necessary to alleviate blight and facilitate any identified types of development. It asks for removal of any rights to make improvements outside of the designated area, removal of any any use of development for county standards or regulations. It asks for removal of the authority to engage in any other project activities without city prior approval. It also requested a financing plan or acknowledgement that any financing would be a substantial modification to the plan, and it asked for a value for money analysis. All of those were rejected by the Urban Renewal Authority. At this point, I'm happy to answer any questions or provide that information, but that was designed to set where staff has been and the work staff has been doing.
Any questions for Mr. Hippolyte? Do you have anything from George first? Councilor Martinez Ortega?
Yeah, thanks for that comprehensive look from the law department.
I have a question. Is
Please.
this typical for when we're doing urban renewal plans now, or?
So when I'm presented information and I was asked by the mayor's office to review the information, I went through the same review I would do with any contract. I talked to the relevant staff, had them review the plan, reviewed the law, and then got there. So hopefully moving forward, this would be typical.
We've just never received such an in-depth look at what urban renewal is doing wrong. So I was just wondering if this is just a new thing or a new city attorney thing, or
Well, so I'm
why
not.
we're going bullet by bullet on what they've rejected or taken.
So I'm not attempting to say what urban renewal is or is not doing wrong. From this perspective, the city is required, the city council is required to approve any urban renewal authority and plan. So to the extent in the past that the city council has approved a plan that was more general in its nature, that's what urban renewal has the authority to do. I'm simply pointing out that in these plans, that's what urban renewal is requesting and trying to make sure that city council is aware of what they would be approving in the event these plans come before city council and they approve it.
But more general plans, like the plans that they have proposed, have been submitted to the council and approved and done. All of a sudden, this is new, or?
Well, so I can't speak of what previous city attorneys have done, but this would always be my process with any development or economic incentive or any kind of financing to make sure that council has all of the information that's necessary for it to make an informed decision. Again, it's purely in the will of council. If council wants to grant urban renewal the kind of blanket authority that it has in the past, I don't have any problem with that. I just want to make sure you're making an informed decision.
Mayor, can you speak to what's previously been done before Mr. Hippolyte, or how we?
Pardon me?
Can you speak to what has previously done before Mr. Hippolyte went through such a thorough process?
Well, it depends on what urban renewal area you're talking about. I mean, we've had some very successful ones like Vestas is an urban renewal area.
Mhm.
It was very specific there in terms of what urban renewal money was going to be spent to reimburse for what public expenses. Everaz is another good example of how urban renewal should work, where you itemize with specificity the expenses of the improvements that are going to be made, the public improvements that are going to be made, and how those improvements are going to be paid for. Contrast those two urban renewal projects with the ones that are before you now, which have no specifics in terms of how much it's going to cost or how it's going to be financed or anything like that.
Have there been any other ones besides the two you just spoke about that were more generalized that we've passed?
There
It was
probably
obviously
have been.
before our time, but,
Yeah, there probably have been.
and that was okay back then?
Well, it depends. The council obviously approved it back then. Was it okay? Is it a good practice? Probably not.
Anybody else?
Madam President.
Yes.
I have so didn't we just review the west or like the block proposed Pura district in the Planning and Zoning Commission, and didn't that pass unanimously? I'm having a hard time of if it's already, if Mr. Work's project and the specific block project has already gone through all of the city processes, most recently with the Planning and Zoning Commission, why would we change the process if that's so close to getting done?
If I may, Councilwoman Martinez, I think we have to separate what planning and zoning does versus what city council does. So planning and zoning under the statute is purely there to review for a determination of whether the development meets with the city's general plan for development in the city. It is not there to determine whether the area is appropriate, whether the use of tax increment is appropriate, whether the project activities are appropriate. That's fully reserved to the purview of city council. So there are two separate reviews that the statute requires. One is required by the Planning and Zoning Commission to determine whether the general plan complies with the general plan for development within the city, which is, again, a more general review. Council is supposed to do a more specific review because what urban renewal is asking for is the use of tax increment into the area to perform project activities, which is not in the purview of the Planning and Zoning Commission. They don't determine how the city spends its money.
And to Councilor Graham's point, didn't Pura come to our city council retreat in February and talk about the proposed Pura districts in February? And we had that in-depth conversation then, and none of this was brought up at all in February. So I guess I'm a little bit confused of
This
what
is,
we're doing now.
no, and Mr. Williams can confirm this, that when I first saw the West Pueblo Urban Renewal Plan, I scheduled a lunch meeting with he and Mr. Abeta, who was the chairman, I think, at the time, and said to them that there are going to be problems with this plan because there were no specifics included in the plan. And I fully expected that they would go back and come up with specifics about these are the kind of public improvements that are going to be made in the West Pueblo urban renewal area. Because as long as I'm the mayor, I'm not going to give anybody a $58 million or an $80 million blank check to spend taxpayers' money for the next 25 years without knowing what that money is going to be spent on. That's the prerogative of the city council, not the prerogative of anybody else. And I think it would be fiscally irresponsible to grant that kind of authority without knowing this is what we're going to spend the money on. These are the kind of public improvements we're going to make. This is how much they're going to cost. This is how we're going to finance them. And this is how long it's going to take. And once that financing is over, the urban renewal area ends. And that money comes back to the other taxing entities. It doesn't go on for 25 years just because if it doesn't take 25 years to pay off the debt that's being incurred. And I think an argument could be made that if debt is not being incurred, there's no reason why urban renewal needs to be involved in these projects. For instance, on North Elizabeth, if they're just going to reimburse the developer, the city can do that and the other taxing entities can do that without urban renewal. Urban renewal's advantages, they can go bond the money they can put the money up front without having an election from the taxpayers. But if they're not going to do that, the city and the other taxing entities can make the same development deals with the developer without urban renewal's involvement at all.
Isn't it true, though, that if in fact the city uses some other form of indebtedness, and let's just use the Avres project as an example. Had the city floated $93 million in bonds, and had they filed bankruptcy or some other issue, the taxpayers would be on the hook for that. But the way it was done, it protects the taxpayers and it protects the city by them floating bonds through tax increment financing, in which the city would have no liability if something like that ever happened. It seems like a huge mistake for us to be talking about indebting the city when in fact we have a vehicle where you made it sound as though the $58 million was a debt that the city was going to have. And as long as you were mayor, you were not going to allow that, when in fact, I don't think there's an exposure there to the city. But maybe you can clarify that.
If I may, from a legal perspective, we have to put things in its proper place. Urban renewal is what you would call a component entity of the city. It is not independent. It is a component entity of the city. If ur-
disagree.
if urban renewal were to default on bonds, that would affect the overall credit portfolio of the city. So while you are correct that the actual money would not have to be repaid, the city's ability to borrow money for other reasons, for example, our CLPs, would be negatively affected. So in this particular situation, you are absolutely right. To the extent that urban renewal is going to go out to the market and finance projects and bond things, that is an absolute benefit to the city. And I'm not here to say it is not. I am merely here to say for projects, to the extent that urban renewal is going to do those things, those should be listed in the plan so that city council knows what it is approving when it is approving these things. Versus with a general plan, urban renewal has the authority to use tax increment without financing as it and its board sees fit.
What about Tabor? Do we fall outside of Tabor when we utilize urban renewal?
Tabor has no place in an urban renewal conversation. So the taxpayer bill of rights from respect to revenue would not constrain the city from doing a development deal or not doing a development deal. Specifically, the city is de-Bruce, so there is no Tabor cap or bar that would prevent the city from spending all of the money it collects. And the other taxing entities, to the extent that it does, it may change the nature of how they do development deals, but those can be worked out contractually. They don't necessarily require an urban renewal authority to work them out.
I think I'd like to hear from
You guys ready? Go ahead,
He wants to go.
Wait, can I have it? Can I interrupt really fast?
I guess.
Okay, thanks. Hey, so I guess I'm confused still because to Mr. Hippolyte and to the mayor's point, there was, so again, utilizing the blocks project, there was a comprehensive plan that the Planning and Zoning Commission literally just approved, which detailed what specific projects in terms of like, sidewalk improvements and street repairs and lighting that we literally just passed in the Planning and Zoning Commission, which did detail that specific project and how Pura would, so I guess I'm confused when Mayor, you say that, there's no detailed plan, and Mr. Hippolyte, you say, well, there's no plan when we just approved it.
So Councilwoman Martinez, I want to do that again. I want to separate the city's approval process and Planning and Zoning Commission from what City Council is required to do. While those documents may have been presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission, I have provided City Council, and it's a matter of this record, the plan that was submitted by Urban Renewal. If you read that plan, none of those activities or projects or costs are listed in the plan. So from a legal perspective, what that means is that Urban Renewal is not bound by those documents. It does not have to do those things, and it does not have to use tax increment for those things. What the city is simply saying in its recommendation, to the extent that those things exist and they're known, they should be put in the plan as a check on what Urban Renewal can and cannot do with the city's tax increment or the other taxing entities' tax increment. The point is the plan under the law is supposed to be specific, not general, because again, as I mentioned, currently Urban Renewal has a process of taking money from certain taxing urban renewal areas and transferring it to its general fund. In my legal opinion, Urban Renewal, like every other entity, just like we had Mark Carmel, to the extent it needs additional resources or funds, what it should be doing is coming to the city for a non-departmental budgetary request, not taking money from existing urban renewal areas and transferring it to its general fund. But again, if that's the will of council and it's okay with Urban Renewal operating that way, that's perfectly fine. I just want to make sure we're having that informed discussion and those decisions are informed.
Councilor Tencio?
Yeah, I think we got all kinds of things floating on this table right now. The west side plan.
Well, we have.
How far along? How far along are we on?
We have a
plan?
whole
Yep.
presentation that we need to get through. I think Ralph wanted
Yeah,
to have some
I-
opening remarks.
Yeah, please. I do want everybody to understand that I was treasurer when we did the Everest project. I'm going to tell you, I was highly criticized by all the taxing entities because it wasn't done professionally. It's because we did the blight study ourselves, which was like falling on, which was very simple when the whole area was contaminated. We did all of that to save money. We provided it to the taxing entities and they were very, very critical of what we did. And we had some problems with one of the taxing entities because of that. So we decided going forward that we would use the same entity that Colorado Springs uses, SEH, okay? And they have been doing our plan documents for us going forward. SEH tells you how much tax increment you could estimate what there would be, and sales tax amounts that could be. For whatever it's worth, we have not used sales tax on our own ever. The only sales tax we ever used was told to be used by the city on the CF and what's
The fuel and iron, but
Fuel and
but
iron.
the city did utilize sales tax increment with the original convention center,
right.
Marriott Hotel and
Right.
Vector Bank Building.
So here's what I'm going to, since that's going to be in every one of our plan documents going forward, I would like to propose that we do an intergovernmental agreement that we will never use your sales tax without your approval. It's time that we do that, because we've been told this on every time we turn around that we're going to be using sales tax in that amount. That's the sales tax you're going to generate, and you ought to be very pleased that that's happening or in that urban renewal district. But we're not going to use it. We don't intend to use it. All of our financing has been done off of property tax increment only. Okay, so I just wanted to get that straight. And believe me, if you want our attorney to draft the intergovernmental agreement, we'll be pleased to. If you want to do it, I'd be happy to do it that way, because I'm tired of hearing that. We are not going to use sales tax increment in any of our projects and any financing. And I'm getting a little, as you can tell, unhappy with what's going on in this. Okay, number two, you will be receiving a check in December, I think it is, for 400 and some thousand from the Vestas project, which is in your funds. Other entities took into consideration, had us do projects because they had a Tabor problem. They wanted us to do it for them. So 2 of the entities did that. 3 of the entities did that. The other, besides the city, and let's see, it'll be the 2 school districts and the library district will get checks come December.
Well, the two water districts and the library district will get payments from us from the surplus revenues.
Right, and so will the city.
And the city does by agreement, but I could speak to that as part of my presentation.
Right,
Because that's what we did when I was city manager here with that agreement is what caused House Bill 1348. Because of the selfish position we took as the city at that time. But I could talk about that here in a minute.
But I just want everybody to understand that, we're always placed in a no-win situation, and I don't understand it. But for sure, we need to move forward. And as far as I'm concerned, if we do not have irrevocable pledges of TIF, property tax TIF, we cannot finance projects. We cannot finance the projects.
Thanks, Rob. And with that, I'd be happy to do our quick little presentation. We were not prepared to do a rebuttal with respect to the comments that I already responded to that were put on the screen. But if you'd like to see my response letters to those comments, I could certainly make those available, specifically to some of the allegations made in that request. With respect to the city's general fund, I just want to note 3125-1051H allows for the authority to pay for its general funding operations. So I would just point the city to that, because what they're effectively saying is the authority has no right to utilize any revenues coming into the authority for any other reason than a debt financing. Well, then how are you going to run an urban renewal authority? I guess if the city wanted to make a general fund appropriation for the authority, maybe in the case that the city council wanted to serve as the authority board themselves, which they have the right to do with the vote of the people, then maybe that would be a department of the city. But currently, we fund our own operations pursuant to the statute. The other thing, with respect to Strack School, it's a collaborative partnership in our community authorized by 3125-1051K, which speaks to the authority's ability to develop, test, undertake basically pilot programs within the municipality. Within the municipality. It doesn't say plan area, it says municipality. Hey, if the city wants to take over all the work that we're doing for Strack School and Bessemer, God bless them. We'll do something else. We're plenty busy. We really are. And to get crucified for doing public projects, everything we do is for the benefit of the community. And so with that, I'd like to get to my presentation. Where's the clicker, Ralph? Oh, there we go. Why us? Because we're the Urban Renewal Authority. Here are the 15 individuals, including myself, that represent the authority. 5 of these individuals are elected officials. 11 are appointed by the city council at the recommendation of the mayor. Okay. So somehow we're this rogue organization of weirdos. There are very proud and distinguished members of this board. And it's insulting to them as they've spoken to me. It's very insulting the way that they are being treated as an entity. They're the decision makers. They are the final decision makers, not me. Well, we'll get to that. This is an excerpt from the bond documents with respect to the Evraz bonds. This legal opinion was certified by QTech Rock, which is also the city's legal counsel for bond transactions. The tax attorney for Evraz, a bunch of other attorneys that were associated with this, our underwriter's attorney, because this was a bond that went on the open market to institutional investors only. So Wall Street folks are the only ones that could bid on this type of bond. Pursuant to the Urban Renewal Law, the authority is a separate public body and corporate and is authorized to exercise broad governmental powers in planning and implementing redevelopment projects. That's not our attorney. That's several other attorneys. No provision or any other law with respect to the planning or undertaking of projects or the acquisition, clearance, or disposition of properties by public bodies shall restrict the authority with respect to the project of the authority unless the General Assembly specifically so states. The General Assembly being obviously our state legislators. What we have on deck are 4 projects that we've been asked to do for the community. Each of them is different, like all of our other districts. I've had the, I don't know if I would call it the pleasure to be associated with every project area the Urban Renewal Authority has undertaken since 2004 in various capacities, either as a city employee, the city's planning director, the city manager for one period of time, or the Urban Renewal Authority director. So I know a lot about what we do and how we've done it with the various city attorneys that we've had over these last 20 some years. The Bluffs project, as was stated earlier, is 3.3 acres. It's a 98 unit apartment complex. We're currently in negotiations with the attorney for the developer and its investment group on the reimbursement agreement, which has to go through the authority board. So the authority board has not made a decision with respect to what is in the redevelopment agreement for certifiable public costs. We have some estimates prepared by our consultant of what that TIF revenue could be. And those are provided in the documents. And, you know, it's part of our normal course of work that the authority would be working on that. But it's subject to approval of the plan by the city council. If the city council doesn't approve the plan, that's it. We're out of it. We're not going to reimburse the developer for public improvements that benefit that particular neighborhood. Other project, North Elizabeth Hotel. The North Elizabeth Hotel, there were environmental issues associated with the Stoll Cleaners that was there. There was a gas tank that was on the site at once upon a time. It was an old trailer park in the back. It's an eyesore from I-25. The developer's requesting an incentive due to the stormwater issues. The site grading has to do with the topography of the hotel because of its floor plate has to actually be elevated with respect to its proximity to the interstate and some of the other cleanup work that's there. Again, they would be certified costs that are eligible public improvements pursuant to the statute. We defer to what a public improvement is by the statutory language. Common law, yes, it is all the city's infrastructure, but there are other things that are defined as public improvements in the statute. Colorado Smelter Phase 1, this project area was brought to the authority, which originally included 5,500 odd properties and included the entire, pretty much the entire original town of Bessemer, the Eilers neighborhood, and the entire Grove neighborhood. Due to the size, the recommendation from the board was to actually shrink it down because of the amount of homes in the area that burn down on an annual basis. The actual property values in districts like this, such as the East Side District, they devalue at a faster rate than our improvements can raise the value. And because those burnt out homes stay there for years, it drives down property values. So we're trying to figure out ways to remove those homes in addition to whatever efforts the city undertakes through their housing department and public works department. We are working with a citizens group called Begin, which is a cooperative of the Bessemer, Eilers, and Grove neighborhood citizens. They're providing the driving push behind this. We've worked with them on the geographic boundary. The projects that we would undertake in that area will be pretty much coordinated with that community group. We don't have a developer to help Northern Avenue, but we have to have the tools to come in and stabilize that neighborhood before we could ever push to redevelop that neighborhood. We're trying to, I mean, it's heavy work. And if the city would rather undertake that, certainly as a municipal function, that is fine with us. There's a citizens group you could work with. And lastly, West Pueblo. West Pueblo, apparently everyone has amnesia about a intergovernmental agreement that the city, the county, and the authority entered into last year, which laid out kind of the program of what we were going to be working on. And so the authority is taking a lot of heavy gunfire and criticism for something that was discussed and approved by this city council to undertake these activities. This again is a broad project because when we started it, we didn't have a final alignment for what is now Medal of Honor Boulevard. We didn't know the scope of the utility improvements because the trunk utilities serving this neighborhood, there are downstream bottlenecks and water quality issues and some other things. There's some junkyards along Wild Horse Creek. And the way this project was discussed to be set up, the city would actually have the ability to solve some of those problems beyond just the immediate needs of that detention center and commercial project. For example, this is a map that shows an aerial photograph in the north-south direction from top to bottom, kind of splitting the project in half. That's Pueblo Boulevard. So you can see where the detention center site, which I erroneously call it a jail, is. So I apologize for that. You see where it's generally located. You see that the Medal of Honor extension goes through city-owned property through an easement that the city granted the county to build the road that they will maintain. There are additional collector level roadways, 31st Street to 29th. The missing links for Spalding extension to the south through, I think it's Pignelli who owns that property. But anyway, to the south to connect to the Cesar Chavez Dolores Welzer campus. Also up towards the outside of the district to connect by where the YMCA is and some of the apartment buildings in the Primrose Center there. Those are missing links that the district would have the ability to fund, acquire property to make those connections. Okay, the city can condemn for a public purpose, and so can the authority, as long as the city agrees to that. So that is the plan, is to try to facilitate these improvements. The number one beneficiary of all of our urban renewal projects, both from a physical and a financial basis, is the city of Pueblo itself. Like Ralph said, we don't ask for sales tax because frankly, that's not a smart move. because of our market condition and what goes on in this town. I can tell you exactly what goes on in Colorado Springs and Denver. The bulk of those project areas are funded from sales tax. And I can have Jariah Walker, who's my counterpart in Colorado Springs, come here and testify to that. I could have the Denver Urban Renewal Authority Executive Director testify to that too. We're just here as a tool for the city, and it's just crazy. It's crazy that we would be able to do these things that would generate sales tax for the city, and for the city to say, no, we don't need urban renewal at all. No, we'll do it ourselves. We'll figure out a way that the county and the school district can make a multi-fiscal year obligation to reimburse the developer. Good luck with that. So that's where we're at. I've been doing this for 28 years, working for local government, and this is crazy what is going on. Oh yeah, one last thing I forgot. It's our wonderful dollar bill. See the dollar bill? And then on the bottom, it's the statute that says that, basically we are the shield from the taxpayer. We undertake these redevelopment projects for the betterment of the city, but the city isn't on the hook. We don't levy a tax. We're able to issue multi-fiscal year obligations, which is necessary for long-term debt financing. The city's portion of a tax increment dollar is 19.175%. Look at Pueblo County, 37%. And with respect to West Pueblo, it appears someone wants to thumb the nose at the county and the school district. We need intergovernmental cooperation for this community. We've seen what's happened when the city takes a very selfish view, which we did with the Vestas project. The city retained all of its tax increment. What happened? The taxing entities revolted and convinced the legislature to push through House Bill 151348. Now we've actually mended fences with our taxing partners, and we're actually partnering. Dutch Clark Stadium was a partnership. That wouldn't have happened if 1538 didn't happen. So it's actually kind of a good thing. But like I said, the citizens that represent the board, you need to trust those folks because you appoint them. Thank you.
Any questions? Oh,
Just
Mr.
one more
Williams.
thing. I do have the indenture agreement for the Everest bonds, if anybody wants to look at it. I do want everybody to understand that when we put only funds were able to buy the issue. It was oversubscribed 6 times. Because of that, we were able to reduce the interest rate by 1%. And we ended up getting our amounts to pay for interest in the first few years at a much lesser amount in the 3 million area rather than the 8 million area that we thought. All I'm trying to say, and we didn't know when we did all of this that Russia was going to bomb Ukraine. We didn't know what kind of headaches we were going to have a year later with all these investors wondering what's going on. What are we going to do? Well, read the indenture. You bought them, they're yours. If something goes wrong, it's your problem. Okay. And we're going to make it. I guarantee you, we've been going out there every other month to see what's going on. It's going to get done. We're going to have tax increment at the end of this year. We're going to be able to pay our interest on the bonds. And I just thought I should tell everybody that because I don't sleep well at night. I don't know about city council. Okay.
Questions for Mr. Pacheco or Mr. Williams? Mr. Counselor Martinez Vega.
Thank you, Madam President. Just one quick question. Are you going to, as I've asked as well, for a plan to be implemented with the proposal of the TIF area, are you going to, now that we have it publicly open, that multiple folks have instructed the Urban Renewal Authority to include a financial plan, are you going to do that for these next urban renewal authorities that you expect us to approve?
We, as part of the impact report, project estimates with respect to what potential taxes could be made available. Our plans generally provide the flexibility for the board to implement and revisit some of the site-specific plans and provide multiple incentives to multiple developers within a broader area. All the cost estimates, I will tell you, it's similar to all the projects that you get initial cost estimates. They're out of date the day you look at them. With
Yeah,
cost
we understand
escalation,
that, but are you gonna provide us a
We
financing
have.
plan?
we have,
along
but,
with your
but I
proposals.
cannot tell you what bank
So
we
you
would
will?
use.
Yes? That's
We
all I
already do.
want. Yeah.
We
So
already do.
yes. You'll
I would
provide
argue
a
that we
very
do.
specific list, and yeah, we understand that
No,
estimates
well,
go out of date.
Then,
But
then
you're
I
gonna
would
give
say,
us a
then I
list
would say
because
with
you said
respect to
that you
this,
are
that don't
working with
approve the plan.
BPN Group.
Don't approve the plan.
Yes, Ortega, let him answer the question.
That don't approve the plan, sir.
So you're not gonna provide a plan?
No, we do. I'm arguing we do. You're saying we don't. So we'll just agree to disagree.
Counselor Flores, did you have something?
Yeah, since we saw this the first time, all the taxing district entities have already approved this, the large district, okay? So, we're upside down trying to get this thing fixed. Since we approved this, one large, nice building was remodeled, everything, and went to nonprofit, so it's no longer on the tax rolls. You got Gornick's Furniture that just closed, and that building's value is going to go down probably because it's empty. You got a pharmacy there on Northern Avenue that's closed, and it's probably going to go down. So what we're trying to do is when we say finance, if we don't have a core entity out there to use, I don't know how to do it.
But all we're asking for is a plan. So if the finance is not there, like eventually, then we understand that, and that's all built into the contract. But without a plan, then how can we, I'm losing this, but I'm losing my train of thought. But I've asked you for a plan. The mayor now is asking you for a plan. I don't think that's unreasonable.
I think there's a disagreement with respect to what is defined as a plan, and I think we probably should have a much broader discussion about that, because the urban renewal district that pretty much primarily funds the Main Street parking garage, that plan is no different than the majority of the other plans. And all the incentives and things that we provided for all of those buildings on the Riverwalk would not have happened if we had to do a very incremental building by building urban renewal plan. We wouldn't have been able to finance the Main Street parking garage. So I think it's more of a public policy discussion amongst the council. Do you want just individual property plans? If that's the case, don't approve Colorado Smelter. Don't do it, because it's a broad area. If direction is to us is to give you site specific, then that's certainly what we can do. We could abandon any other discussions of those broad plans, which provides this city with the oversight of the board and everything else, the ability to finance some of those other projects as the bigger area evolves.
Counselor Flores.
You brought in the memorandum, I guess it was a contractual arrangement with the county as not part of the urban renewal, but there was an agreement of the things that we were going to outline. Could you elaborate on that?
So Councilor Flores, I want to be very clear
Mhm.
because we're now drifting into Mr. Pacheco giving the council legal advice. So I just want
I'm
to
not
correct.
giving them legal advice, it could be
I-
policy advice.
Again, I just want to correct the record. The agreement between the county and the other taxing entities is a memorandum of understanding. It is not a agreement. There are no obligations that the city has to. It's the party saying, here is how we think we will move forward. It is not contractually binding. Period, point blank. I have read the agreement multiple times. And again, if Mr. Williams and Mr. Pacheco want to provide council legal advice and council wants to accept it, you're welcome to. I am telling you as your legal advisor, it is not contractually binding. That's just a fact. There's no way to work around it. I also want to clarify one thing for council. City staff's recommendation are not specific plot by plot plans. All that city staff has said in accordance with 31-25-1079 To the extent that urban renewal does not define the plan, when it does begin to define the plan, as the statute requires, it has to come back for city council approval. What Mr. Pacheco is saying, we won't do that. Trust us. Again, that is purely council's prerogative to go with that if council wants to. This is not a debate or dispute that urban renewal does good things or that they're right. This is merely saying the statute requires city council to approve substantial modifications. Coming up with a financing plan after an approved area and plan are done is a substantial modification in accordance with the statute.
We
And that's
disagree.
supposed to come back to city council.
So I suggest that we probably just have dueling legal opinions and have the lawyers slug it out.
I don't think we need to do that
Because I we're-
represent
This,
city
this
council.
is not a legal discussion at this point. I think really what we're talking about here is public policy. And if the city council does not trust the Urban Renewal Authority Board, then I think maybe the city council should seriously consider going to the voters and the city council become the authority board themselves.
So I want to be clear from a legal perspective. One, that is not staff's recommendation. Two, the authority board is appointed by the city and serves at the pleasure of the city. It does not have to go to the voters to even dissolve urban renewal. It can merely pass an ordinance. The mayor can, at his full discretion in accordance with the statute, can ask any member with approval of council to remove them from the authority's board. Again, the authority is not a separate entity. It serves. The city is the governing body in accordance with the statute. I understand Mr. Pacheco has a difference of opinion, but he is not the legal advisor for the city.
Then how is this Urban Renewal Authority a separate body politic?
Because what you are saying is for the purposes
I'm-
of financing, please let me finish. What you are saying is for the purposes of financing, urban renewals books are separate. A separate body politic is different in the financing world. I understand, Mr. Pacheco, you know very well how planning and urban renewal goes, but I know public financing a tiny bit better than you.
Mr.
So-
Hippolyte, this is not a courtroom, so I think Mr. Flores had a direct question for you. So if you could just answer the direct question that Mr. Flores had, that would be good.
Yes, ma'am. I answer Mr. Flores's question.
Did
Was
you-
that sufficient?
He was asking
You know,
about a
it's,
certain.
yeah, if you just jump out of this and take a high view of what we're doing here, it's very, very frustrating, because what we have here is we have legal counsel through Urban Renewal. His name is Paul Benedetti. Paul Benedetti has gone on record that you are wrong. And I'm not saying you're wrong.
No,
He's-
Mr. Flores,
yeah.
council is fair to take Mr. Benedetti at his
No,
word
what I'm
and take his
saying,
advice.
no, what I'm saying is that you have put us in a position where we're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4 different entities that all have their own legal counsel. You're our legal counsel here, I think. We have Paul Benedetti. Urban Renewal has another, our board attorney. And right now, I'm confused. I mean, what should me as the voting member of Urban Renewal, where should I get advice from now? Should we have a third party come in to now mediate 2 different legal opinions?
Well, we're sitting here as.
Yeah, I'm not
Okay,
done.
Okay.
I'd like for you to,
Sure.
what do you think we should do?
Absolutely no problem. So again, Mr. Benedetti has not disagreed with me. Every case he's provided, every statute he's provided, I've read. I provided the statutes in my presentation. Council has them. Council can read the statutes. The wording is plain as day. If Mr. Benedetti disagrees with my legal opinion, he has the absolute right as a lawyer to disagree with my legal opinion. It's not my purview to represent urban renewal. It's my purview to represent the city. And in this particular situation, I believe Mr. Benedetti is wrong because the statute is unambiguous and unclear. You are the governing body of an urban renewal authority. Every plan you must approve, every project you must approve, any substantial modification you must approve. I took for a very long time hearing council as different budgetary requests come, as different plans come, council's will as it does not want things that are unbudgeted. It does not want things that are unplanned. It wants those details to be provided in a transparent way so the public can know what you're approving, what you're not approving. I apologize if I was wrong by taking this stance, working with staff to try to get this plan the way it should be. Because again, as I am saying, if you look at other urban renewal plans around the state, The things the city is asking for, they do because the city is the governing authority. It's not like the other taxing entities. The statute gives the city different powers. That's all I am saying. So again, I think you should take my advice. But again, as a counselor, you're free to take whatever advice you feel like you need to take to make an informed decision. If that's Mr. Vendetti's, I don't take offense to that. I'm merely providing this advice so council can make an informed decision.
Well, I have a document directly from him where he's totally disagreeing with you.
And I can show my
Yeah.
response to that document where I totally disagree with him and cite the statutes, which I say make me right. He doesn't refute those. He
Right.
merely says this is the way we've done it in Pueblo.
Yeah. Well, there's a saying in India that when the elephants fight, the only thing that gets harmed is the grass. And that's what I feel like. I feel like when you have two powerful attorneys that disagree and we're trying to make a decision the best we can. I sit through every board meeting. I've never missed an urban renewal meeting. And I always felt that I was getting good advice. Now you're saying that all the advice that we've gotten in the past, I guess, has been defective. And I look at what the work that's been done and the process that's been worked on. And I got to say, we've done a lot of great things with urban renewal. I mean, it's a tool that just is so valuable to this community. I can't even say it. So, where do we go from here? I mean,
If I may say, Councilor
Yeah.
Forrest, what you just mentioned is that urban renewal is a tool, correct? That's a
Mhm.
tool for the city to use to alleviate blight and redevelop areas. If we are saying the same thing. What I am simply saying is that urban renewal has no independent authority under the statute. That to use this tool, the city has to approve it, whether it's project financing, whether it's areas and everything else. If you've been getting different advice and you're fine with the results of that different advice have been given, I would advise you to stay on that course and stay on that path. You
There's-
don't have to take my legal counsel. It is
There-
merely provided
there's
for the
never been
benefit
a
of an
question
informed
with city
decision.
council knowing that we have to ratify everything they bring to.
But you don't have to ratify it. You can approve it with conditions. You can ask them to rechange the plan. All of those powers are provided in the statute because you are the governing body. It is not something you abdicate to the Urban Renewal Board. The Urban Renewal Board is appointed by the city. It serves at the pleasure of the city. It is not an independent authority that should be able to make decisions of how money is spent in urban renewal areas without city council approving it first. That's merely what I'm advocating.
Yeah, but it's not like we're in isolation here. We're both President Graham and I wear different hats at the same time. So we feel, I never feel like they're hiding anything from us. Everything is thrown out on the table. We know I serve on the finance committee with urban renewal. I knew every detail that we went through on the Avres project with Ralph Williams, Don Banner, Paul Benedetti. There was never a question in my mind of not ratifying it. In fact, when I came here, I was satisfied that those projects were perfected. And so I had no problem and qualms about using that position to be able to explain to the rest of the counselors that this was a good plan and it should be passed. I think that's part of our job as counselors is to, if we have different duties, that we come back and we tell our fellow counselors, this is what we've done. And, but now there's a monkey wrench in here now. Somehow there's something bad happening and and we have a difference of opinion with two good legal minds. What should we do as a council now?
I'm telling you, Councilor Forrest, I'm hired to represent the city. Mr. Benedetti has a financial interest in representing the authority. They pay him. The city pays my salary. I'm simply here to provide you transparent information of what the plan says, what the plan would allow. It is purely up to council. If it believes that this plan is sufficient to get council's approval, we'll put it on and council can approve it as written. Staff simply made recommendation. Mr. Pacheco has said he won't make these changes. So staff can approve, so city council can approve the plan as it is. That's all that.
I'm still
that's all
waiting
that
for a
we're saying.
response from the city from my letters issued last week.
May I say something?
Counselor Maestri and then Mayor. And then Counselor.
Thank you, Mr. Hippolyte, for your recommendations. As we sit up here on city council, we are representing the city and the people of this city. And I have nothing against the Urban Renewal Authority. And if we're asking for a more detailed plan to cross our Ts and dot our Is, that's just today's doing business. Everything should be in writing. It should never be on a handshake or an assumption. And if you feel like you're strong in what you're going to present to us as that's going to work for us, then why not put it all in writing? And why don't we, if we're implementing a new procedure because we have new legal representation, then that's what we need to do in order to cross our T's and dot our I's. Transparency is what we've all run on. And transparency is about having the people, giving the people the ability to see what we're doing here and the decisions that we're making. So I really appreciate you coming forward with your recommendations. And I don't think that they might not be the norm, but I think that they should be well received by both parties. And then that way we have it down, because I don't like voting for things that aren't in detail. I like detail. I think Solano knows that. We had that discussion the first week when I came on to council. I like details. I like plans. I like to hold people. That's how you hold these transactions and these contracts, people's feet to the fire, is when we have it all there in writing. I don't want to guess about it. I don't want to hope that it's going to happen. I want to have a recourse in case things don't happen. And so I appreciate you bringing it forward. I don't know if we're picking and choosing. I don't really understand what the whole argument is here. If we're targeting one, I would like to see it straight across the board with everything that we do. Thank you very much.
Mayor.
Yeah, I want to make it clear that the discussion we're having here today is meant in no way to disparage the Board of Commissioners that serve on the Urban Renewal Authority. And to the extent that they've taken there as some aspersion on them, I think that's just not correct. The real question here is, and Councilor Flores asked, what should we do as a city council? Well, as a city council, you are elected by the voters. It's your responsibility to oversee the expenditure of taxes. The plans that have been submitted to the city council at this point are so broad that you're going to abrogate that responsibility for the next 25 years to the Urban Renewal Authority to spend the taxes, the TIF, the property taxes that are collected in that area for the next 25 years to the pure board of directors without any oversight by the city council. That, I think, is a mistake. I think Mr. Pacheco had it right. Don't approve the plan. And when they come back with a plan that says, hey, we have a developer that wants to purchase this piece of property. He needs to have us put in this road. It's going to cost this much to do that road. When they put that development in, it'll generate this much TIF and we can pay for the road. That's how this should work. Mr. Pacheco says that if you approve these plans, they would have the ability to put in these roads or do all these projects, but there's not the requirement that they do that. There's not the requirement that they do that with these tax dollars. With the city's tax dollars, the county's tax dollars, the library district's tax dollars, anybody's tax dollars. There's no requirements. What we're saying is that moving forward, come up with specifics. Tell us how much it's going to cost. And with respect to these individual properties like the Bluffs and like North Elizabeth, those are individuals. We know what those public improvements are going to be. Now, I haven't heard that we're going to borrow the money and pay the developers up front for that. If that's the case, that's one thing. That would be a good use of urban renewal to bond that. But to say we're going to give the developer $2 million and over 25 years, we're going to collect $7 million in this urban renewal area doesn't make sense to me. And it shouldn't make sense to you either as elected representatives of the taxpayers who have an obligation to watch over that. The Urban Renewal Board is appointed by the city, but they're not elected by the voters. You guys are the ones that are elected by the voters, and you should require these specific details as we move forward on these urban renewal plans so we know what the tax money is going to be spent on and how long it's going to be spent for that, rather than just for 25 years give a blank check to the Urban Renewal Authority to do what they can with the money.
All of the plans that come forward from Urban Renewal
we're talking specifics here. I don't see how you can come up with specific things in your plan that are unaccounted for during the process of getting the project done. If you want specifics on every single little minutia of a plan, like Mr. Pacheco said, we probably can't do the project. We have to give them some kind of lateral latitude in order for them to do the project. If we're going to sit here and ask for specifics on absolutely every penny that's going to go into this plan, there's no way that we're ever going to approve a plan. There's no way that they could ever achieve a plan. So I think it comes down to the point where we're either going to trust them, because not only are we supposed to be on these boards to support these organizations, but we're supposed to be there to act as a guard against any malfeasance that board might be doing, and we should take that responsibility heavily. I think we're just on certain projects, you're asking for just way too much. For instance, the West Side project, you say that these roads are going to be done, the sewer is going to be done, the water is going to be done. What more specifics do you want from that? Well, it looks like it's in the plan now.
Did you have something, Councilor?
Other municipalities have put their plans together. We have examples of other municipalities who have received a plan in detail. It's right there in your packet.
They're not very specific, though. Increase in.
Madam President.
Councilor Martinez.
So again, referencing the Bluffs plan that planning and zoning just passed, I can understand how when Jerry says, it's a policy decision and that they're putting a plan forward, because I have looked at that Bluff plan and I thought it was completely sufficient in the amount of information that was provided in the plan, in the improvements that it proposed. And I understand that it's different processes to Mr. Hippolyte's point, but I think that PURA has done a good job at providing transparent plans in the public improvements that they're wanting to make. And I agree with Councilor Tencio and Councilor Flores in that I don't think it's realistic and I don't think it's reasonable to have exact dollar amounts when we're talking about 25 years of a timeline. And so all that to say, I have full confidence in the PURA Authority Board. It's made up of private citizens, but also public elected officials. So they are accountable for taxpayer money, to the mayor's point earlier. And I have full confidence in PURA, and I don't think that we should change anything. And I don't want to take staff's direction.
Hippolyte.
I just want to clarify something that everyone keeps saying. So again, staff's recommendation is not that they provide at a project detail every specific requirement. Again, under the statute, CRS 3125-1079, any substantial modification to a plan has to come back to City Council for its approval. All that staff's recommendations have done is merely say, either you put the detail in the plan, for example, in North Elizabeth where you know the detail, or in the Bluffs where you know the detail, or when that detail is fleshed out, you come back to City Council for approval. We are not saying that there needs to be a minutia in every plan for the plan to get approved. It's perfectly fine to have a general plan, but the statute requires, as that plan gets fleshed out, it to come back to this body for approval. Again, I'm not, to Councilor Martinez's point, this is not an indictment on urban renewal. This is letting City Council know the statute is set up for you to be the approving authority for these plans and these changes, not the Urban Renewal Board. But if council, in accordance with a individual plan or individual plans, wants to give that authority, it's fully your opportunity. It's fully your jurisdiction and purview.
Mr. Hippolyte, so like on the Bluffs plan, for example, I know this one has been signed off on all the other taxing entities. To do what you're asking urban renewal to do, how much time would that add?
So
They
I
would
would-
have to go back to the taxing entities and resubmit the plans, and so that would just prolong the developer even longer. The specific developer that I think has been waiting on the city for 2+ years.
okay, so I want to be very clear. Urban renewal cannot do a deal on an urban renewal area and an urban renewal plan without this body first approving it. So to the extent Mr. Pacheco is representing that he's already done deals for tax increment in an area that is not designated as an urban renewal area and had a plan approved, that violates the statute.
Any major modification requires going back to all the taxing bodies. I want to make that fundamentally clear on the record. Anything triggering a major modification to the plan in the statute requires going back to the taxing bodies.
Again, what I'm saying, Counselor Graham, is to the extent that Mr. Pacheco, as you said, made the representation that all of the other taxing entities had approved the plan, that is improper under the statute. The city must approve first. The city has to approve the
The
urban
city
renewal.
told us to do it first. Mr. Hippolyte, is there no continuity left in the city attorney's office? We were instructed by the city to try to get these projects pre-approved by the taxing bodies. Now it's the reverse.
Is the city usually the last to approve it?
No, the city's supposed to be the first to approve it. That's how the statute lays it out. Again, in my presentation, I laid out the statute and what it says. And again, I have no idea what Mr. Pacheco is referring to, but the only body in the city who can approve an area and approve a plan is this city council. So to the extent you have not approved an area and approved a plan, it is improper for anyone to sign any kind of tax increment deal because there's no urban renewal area and there's no urban renewal plan. I can't speak to what has happened, what instruction has been given, but unless the 7 members of this city council have given that instruction through a resolution approving the area and the plan, it is improper for anyone to enter into an agreement with the Urban Renewal Authority.
Was that how the previous plans were?
Well, you haven't done
I
that
do
yet,
not
have
know.
you? With anybody?
No, they're mixing two different things. They're negotiating the TIF sharing agreement with the taxing bodies. The city has instructed us to enter into those before, if possible, before we even bring it to city council. That's the direction we've been given.
Again, Councilwoman Graham, what I am saying is that is improper. Like, again,
Dan-
all I'm saying is under the
Dan
statute.
Gosick, Tom Jagger, and everybody before, Tom Florzak, all of them were wrong, brutally wrong. So we apologize. You want us to change our practices? We will change our practices based on the new city position. We understand that. Just put it to us in writing and we will do whatever we can to abide by what the city wants. Seriously, we've wasted months, in some cases years now. You got citizen volunteers who have now wasted their time.
You're
But
the one
we will
wasting
go
their
back.
time.
We will go
Sorry,
back.
Ms. Ortega.
You're out
Yeah, you're
of
out of
order.
line.
You are completely out of order.
We will go, give us the direction, we will go do it. That's all I can say.
I think everybody in here can agree that we want these projects to move forward. So what do we need to do to get these on our agenda? What does that look like? What will suffice with you if they're not willing to do A, B, C, D, E? What does that look like? Because we don't want to hold up any more development.
Again, Counselor Graham, it is not my intention to hold up anything. The city has not prolonged or stopped anything. This is a work session where these projects were presented, the information of what your authority is, what the urban renewal authorities were presented, and city council now, when these projects come up, can make an informed decision. Urban Renewals has already said they will not make these changes. So I assume they're going to submit the same reports. So to the extent they get to council, council will be faced with a choice. You choose to approve the general authority Urban Renewals is asking, and without them ever having to come back to you for the next 25 years
But
to
they
tell you
do
what they're
have
doing.
to come back.
But again, his plan says he doesn't. His plan says other projects and undertakings, which specifically says that they have the authority to take on other projects and undertakings without coming back to this body with authority. The devil is always in the detail. The plan does not say what Mr. Pacheco is representing. I provided these plans and they're part of the record. You can read them yourself. They do not lay out specific costs. They do not lay out specific powers. They do not lay out specific goals for individual urban renewal authorities. They all actually read the same and have the exact same language. So those plans will be presented to city council. I'm assuming based on this direction, and city council has the full authority to approve them or approve them with conditions or whatever city council wants to do. We'll write the ordinance the way city council instructs us. This was merely designed to make sure city council had the information it needed to make an informed decision. What that decision is purely in this body's purview.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah,
Mr.
quick,
Martinez Ortega, hold on.
Yeah, as these projects lie, I won't be voting for them without any modification. So that's where I'm at. And urban renewals just asked for direction, so just give them
I
direction.
want to have
Okay,
those.
fantastic.
I want to have
Counselor
that.
Flores.
I want to go ahead and add these projects to our next city council meeting.
Did you get that? He would like to get these on the next agenda.
So all of these can't go on the next agenda. Again, each one of them has to go through planning and zoning. Each one has not gone through
But the
planning.
ones that have gone through planning and zoning, like the Bluffs has gone through planning and zoning, correct?
I'm not aware if Bluffs has gone through planning and zoning. I think
Bluffs
Councilwoman
has the Bluffs
Martinez.
gone through. It has, so can we get that on the next? agenda?
Absolutely.
Great, thank you.
North Elizabeth will go on.
It did. And
No.
and it passed unanimously for Planning and Zoning Commission at the last Planning and Zoning
Thank
meeting.
you. And what about the North Elizabeth Hotel, Mr. Hobson? Has that gone
It's
through?
on the agenda for Thursday.
Not yet, on the agenda for Thursday, and then we'll have a little bit more information, so maybe we can see that on the 27th. Counselor Tencio?
Yeah, since we're speaking for individual projects, we can ask for any modifications to the plan when we see it, so I don't see a problem. Bring them forward. If we see something that we'd like to add, subtract, we'll do that.
You tell us what you want and we will do everything we can to give you what you want.
That's the way it's always been.
Yeah, in the North Elizabeth plan that you have, it tells you what kind of increment is going to be developed out of that. It does. It's in the plan.
So you're referring to two different things. The plan does
Oh,
not
the
say that.
impact
The
report-
impact
impact
report
report,
does, but the
okay.
impact report is not binding on what urban renewal can
So-
do with that
so-
tax increment.
So go ahead and make the change. It's okay with me because we're not going to generate enough TIF there to do much of what they're asking for. We're going to generate TIF in approximately 1.8 million. Our list of eligible expenses will go way beyond that amount. So the most we're going to give them is the what?
The impact report projects $7 million.
25 years.
Over 25 years. 5 years. So which means
The sales tax number?
no.
Developers getting 2 million. What's happened to the other 5?
If it's surplus revenue, then it goes back to the taxing bodies.
So we'll pay it off once the developer gets their 2 million.
There could
bucks?
be a potential advance refunding, or during the 25-year life of the process, they could potentially turn their parking lot into a new development. I mean, that's what you have the ability to do that, but we're audited publicly. You appoint the board, we're subject to open meetings law. I mean, it just sounds like this nefarious, we're doing all this crazy nefarious stuff. It's just,
We don't think you're
No,
crazy.
we don't.
So we will wait to hear after Thursday then, and we will see the Bluffs project on the November 27th meeting. Okay, anything else from anybody else? Okay, thank you, gentlemen. So moving along to the budget. I'm not sure who's presenting. Alex, is it you? I've lost my paper. Oh, Mayor, Chief of Staff, and Alex presenting on the budget.
All right, last work session for the budget. And this will be a quick one. We're just going to go through the B1 changes from the proposed in the beginning of October. So you all were given a handout that has all this information. And so the slides are really just that information just broken down into slides. So we have the summary of the budget changes from the initial B1 to what it will be as directed for the adopted. We had a legal department, LexiPro fees. This was something that was added in-house, but we didn't get it onto the proposed budget. So it has been sitting there as something that we need to bring to the adopted budget. Then we had IT radio shop temp wages of 19,500, the economic dashboard of 55,500, the Pueblo Zoo increase of 133,000, Mount Carmel veterans for 75,000, HARP maintenance increase of 50,000, Pueblo Heritage Museum of 22,000, and the mayoral runoff election increase of 50,000. So all those together is a $429,000 increase. So that takes our B1 balance into fund balance of $10,692,023. Below that are additional changes to the bubble due to our Pueblo Bulls contract. And so it is a net zero on the budget. It's an increase in professional service, but also an increase to the revenue. On the next slide shows the updated B1, and the highlighted areas are those that were increased or decreased based on the changes that were on the previous slide. So we have the charges for service that increase was due to the Ice Arena rental revenue. Then we have the operating costs for the legal department, contractual agreements, and that was the economic dashboard, then the Pueblo Zoo, and also Mount Carmel and HARP maintenance. Contributions increase was the Pueblo Heritage Museum, and transfer to other funds was for the mayoral runoff, which is part of our capital improvement plan. The next pages just show specifically where these items land within the budget book. So when you get your new budget book, this is the change that you'll see. So we have the revenue for the Ice Arena and the Ice and Arena rental, the IT, the law, and the parks. These are our larger areas where we had
What page are you
multiple-
on? Can you tell us?
Sure.
where
So
you're at?
I'm on page 5 on the slides, but on your handout, I would be on page, because I just took snips of these. It would be on page 8 is where we're at, the contractual payments. So the previous pages, what I had done is I just took the line item that had the increase on there and pulled those to the slide deck, but you'll be able to find that information within the details of the entire department on here. So then on page 8 and slide 5, we're showing the contractual payment increases as I have described previously. Our contribution and donation. So this one just has the one for the Pueblo Heritage Museum. And lastly, our transfer to other funds, the capital improvement, the increase of 50,000. So that's all I had. Those were the increases that we have talked about over the last several weeks. So if there are any questions, I can take that at this time.
Any questions for Alex? Councilor Maestri, you have a question?
Alex, with this new, what is it? Our real-time crime center. Is that money to maintain that and operate that in this budget for?
So I would have to go back and look at the specifics. We do have the 1.5 in the ARPA. but
Correct.
I don't remember if we had the funding for the annual. Do you perhaps remember that, Laura?
Counselor Maestri, I think our IT department director is on Zoom, but the bid has now come back. I think they were refining costs with respect to the 1.5. So we can get a clear picture when the ARPA committee meets on Wednesday morning, and then confirmation of those, what it will cost by the time they open for 2024 to determine if they are part of that 1.5 or if they're going to be needs to be into the general fund, or if the plan is what other cost line item out of the PD budget.
So the operating of that system is not part of the budget currently.
The final numbers will look to see where in the general fund it can be part of it, or is it part of ARPA funds? And we don't know that until Wednesday. Is Lori saying? Lori raising her hand?
Lori's here. Lori's raising her hand. The 2024 costs are embedded in the 1.5 out of ARPA funding for the Real-Time Crime Center. And then the grant funding that the police department has received, that 2024 costs will also be part of that as well.
And the Real-Time Crime Center technicians are part of the budget. They are part of this.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Councilor Flores.
Yeah, I have, I'd asked the question, well, first of all, the Latino Chamber came to us. I think they were the very first at the beginning of the budget and gave us, everybody wanted a comprehensive report from them and they brought that forward. And I had a discussion with Noah Comerford, the executive director, and evidently he told somebody, I guess, that they had not used all the money last year. He says he never said that. And what I'd like to do is put back the 100,000 that we've been giving them, and then allowing them to be able to bring the documentation that they have. So I at this point, I don't think there's a risk there. Either they've done it or they haven't done it. And you get documentation from all the money that we give to the non-departmental and non-contractual nonprofits. And so because we didn't have everybody go through this, did we? I mean,
No, we did not.
so, but in this particular case, all I'm saying is that if they did use it and, that they come and go through vetting through your department. And if that's true, he's saying that he never said that. And so, and I don't know whether he misstated something or whether, but they've been doing a lot of work with, on this issue that we gave him the 100,000. And so I'd like to put it back and put the ball in their court. And at least for the 50 that was taken out.
And if that's council's direction, we can certainly do that. Because that is not a finance decision. What these numbers are, those are proposed by the mayor and then goes through the budget committee. So
Okay.
if that is the direction of council, we can make that adjustment.
I'm good with that if they haven't used all that,
Yeah.
but I mean, yeah. we
Ms.
could find that
Solana,
out.
you had told us that Noah had said that. I was not,
It was Mayor Grant.
oh, Mayor, you had said that. Somebody had
Well,
said that.
what,
I was
no,
not. here.
they came and did a presentation, and what I recall from the presentation is that the stuff we gave money to do for this year, they were not gonna do until next year. That's what I recall, that
I
they
wasn't
were
here, I don't know.
pushing
I
that
just-
stuff into next year. We could go back, obviously, it's a matter of public record, and we can pull it up, but that's the stuff that they said they were gonna do, they're not doing until next year. There's no doubt in my mind they spent the money.
Yeah.
But
Well, maybe part of that process is that they have the replenishment of those funds as well to continue some of that work that'll spill into the next year, like it did this year.
I still want them, I'm not saying that he didn't say that or whatever, but I don't think there's a risk here. If in fact they didn't spend it on what they said they were gonna spend it on, then we can go back to the 50. All right.
Ms. Solana.
Thank you all. We have this PowerPoint presentation that the Latino Chamber presented in their work session. I believe, and I said we have to confirm in finance, but I believe we paid them the full 100,000 upfront, not asking for them to repay it all. Their plan was to then continue the plans into 2024. But at November 6th tonight, the current budget, as Alex presented it tonight, is on first reading for next Monday. So if the direction of council is to add 50,000 to get through first reading, and then this part is easy for finance to change and add it for first reading. And so that if it can go through at second reading, to either add it now with your direction or add it at the beginning of the year coming out of fund balance, whichever direction you want to go. But so finance can have the first reading attachments correct for next week.
So you can do that. I prefer that be done.
Yes, we can make that edit before next week.
I have another issue. I just found out today that the bids came in on the boathouse and the extension of the HARP deal. And do we have any money set aside to help the HARP complete that project? Is that anywhere in the budget?
No,
I
we
didn't
don't
think
have
it-
any money set aside. We're setting a meeting with all the interested parties for, I think, the week of Thanksgiving, that we're trying to get that set up to figure out a path forward. Obviously, at the time, you and Counselor Graham went to the county commissioners and got an extra million. We're still $5 million short now
It sounds like the
of,
bids were
of
higher.
that project. So I think we have to get everybody at the same table and talk about a path forward. So
But
we're
if we're
setting that
going to
meeting
get,
up.
if we're going to get if in fact we can work everything out with all the parties, where are we going to find the money if we don't include it in our budget now?
Where are we going to find the money? Well, we have reserve money. I mean, if we could decide to do that, if that's the course we decide to take,
Sure.
we haven't made that decision. I haven't made the decision that I would support that.
Mhm.
I mean, we're going to explore what the funding opportunities are. Urban Renewal's got $7 million in their general fund, apparently. That's in an urban renewal area. So I think that's a possibility. We invited them to be at the table as well to say, this is where we're at here. We were going to bring the county in and say, hey, we were mistaken when we thought it was going to be 12 million. It's now 15 or 14.2, I think is what the numbers came in at.
Well, they've got two new county commissioners, so everything's changed and
Well, they've got one new county commissioner.
well, Zach just came on board right in the middle of this, and I don't know, he was kind of overwhelmed.
Yeah,
with-
well, that's why I say I think we have to get everybody on the same page and see what's the path forward.
Right.
I mean, we had it broken down. So the boathouse is about 10 million. The expansion of the HARP is about 4 million. So
Yeah.
it's obviously possible to proceed with one without the other.
Right.
That's why we're going to bring everybody to the table and sit down and talk about it.
All right. All right, thank you.
Any other questions about the budget? What is the radio temp shop wages?
Say, Lori, do you want to speak to that?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
The radio shop temp wages of 19,500.
So we have a temporary employee to help with some of the installs and some of our fiber projects that we have going on. And we got him hired in, I think it was just in early September, late August. And so this would carry him into the next months to finish out, or next year to finish out and handle the workload that's currently going on in the radio shop.
For an additional employee,
It's just a temporary employee.
but he was additional.
Yes, he's an additional employee.
Any other
My
questions?
apologies. I had stepped away for just a sec.
Oh, you're fine, Miss Pence. Okay, anything else from anybody else? Okay, so we will see the budget on first reading on Monday. Okay, that's all. I conclude this work session at 8:13.